The search for common ground has called on journalists in Nigeria to help discard the narrative that the Niger Delta region of the country is a conflict-prone area. This was during a training and capacity-building session for newsmen in Warri, Delta State, where they urged journalists to be more sensitive in their reporting. They urged newsmen to focus on the success story of the region, help address misinformation being peddled, and be more conflict-sensitive in their reporting, so as not to drive conflict and violence via false reports.
Activity that we just finished implementation is called the Common Ground Journalism Training, and it is targeted at media actors, and the essence is that journalists are not just stakeholders on the project, but they are also partners because we want them to help us to amplify the success story of the project, and beyond that also amplify the success stories coming out of the Niger Delta region. And that's because over time, what has been put out there, anytime the Niger Delta is reported, is conflict narratives. And we want journalists to, as partners, to see how these conflict narratives can be reframed, can also be more conflict sensitive in their reportage. And that is where we decided that it's important we provide the Common Ground Journalism training for them, which takes their focus, to doing quality reporting, conflict-sensitive reportage, and also by ensuring that their reports are development-driven, instead of becoming conflict drivers, adding to the conflict in the region. Now, the training is particularly important for journalists because, number one, it will equip them with skills that will enable them to be conflict sensitive. In other words, they will be professional enough and be equipped enough to identify what constitutes conflict drivers within Niger Delta communities, identify what the issues are, and use their reports to draw the attention of policymakers, duty bearers, to respond to those issues. And I'm happy from the testimonies we have heard, even from the performances we have seen from the post-test. I'm happy that a lot of success stories will be coming out from this training.
Timely in the sense that it came at a time when there are crises in the Niger Delta, and there is need to have a community-centered approach to handling conflicts and violence in the Niger Delta. So for me, the capacity building has given another light or another area for journalists to look into. Most times we do reports and we don't engage certain principles or skills into our reporting. Is actually what we need at the time that we are in this country right now. But particularly, I think it's the aspect of the digital training where you do your report. Now it's no longer about just doing a report, it's about actually putting in the skill of data, and data that can easily be analyzed at a glance. That's the graphical representation, as when we use that particular skill of data wrapper, how you can actually get data, interpret it in such a way that it will appeal to a certain audience in your report. So particularly that has stood out for me. And also in teaming your content, you identify a topic. Often you see that your head goes all over the place, but now I understand that I can actually identify a topic and then break it down.
In the last 5 days, trust me, it's going to have a lasting impact in my journey as a news reporter, news editor, news writer, and even news presenter. So our eyes were really open to a lot of things before now we take for granted, and instances where we thought, okay, we know these things already. There was really an exposition to some other core issues that we need to pay attention to help us unravel issues, especially in the area of identity. I was exposed to how that can impact on your reporting. If we do not fully understand what identity means and how complex the human nature is, you might not be able to find your way around some sensitive reports that you need to do. So active listening is one, and then of course conflict analysis we were taken through the journey of trying to find the root causes of issues instead of just staying at the surface or looking at the effects, but then let's go to the root to address that. So that's my take. One of the other things I think I would apply in my job moving forward is to see how I can come up with special content for behavioral change. So for me, the idea of news was just get the story, put it out there. So, but now I think I can go a step further, knowing that this content I want to put out, what do I intend to achieve with this? So, and in doing so, I would go the extra mile. If it means, digging deeper, getting resource persons, people who can do that job, I think we can also do that. Another thing that stood out for me, it's the conferral powers that we have as journalists. I must always know that the report I'm putting out there, I'm responsible for it. So if I do not want myself, my name, my report to be portrayed in bad light, take responsibility for what you do.
We hope to see more news items that will reflect what we thought here, what we have, the knowledge we've impacted here. There used to be, or that it has always been the situation where we have so many people come into the profession of mass media, journalism generally, and not so professional about it. But now bringing media actors to this space to really equip them more to add to their knowledge. So we expect to see more of professional news writing, putting into cognizance all the modules that we've used, and most especially the common ground approach, which will stand anyone that uses it out in whatever they do. So we expect to see more productivity, more professionalism, and of course the ethics of the profession will be upheld. So we talk about behavioral change messages. It's not been so much seen in journalistic products where we have news writers just focusing on the breaking of the news. We are now calling for a shift where people will focus on attitudinal change, where people will focus on getting to the root cause of issues, and we will not mix this up with investigative reporting. It's a deliberate attempt to look deeply into issues and help the people with their perception and the perspective at which they view things